We're up to Perek A, first Chelek, first part, Perek A, 5th chapter, okay? And there's a very interesting chapter that the Ramchal is going to speak about. I had begun a little of it, but it's so far in the past, so I just want to recap, as they say, That the Ramchal, what he's going to do in this chapter, which is really very important, he's going to talk about the components of the creation. What did God create? What are the components? You see, and what's their role or their function? And that's a very important idea, because it's not a matter of what God created. Why are they here? You see, what is their, like I said, what's their function? How do they contribute to creation? It's a very important part of the plan. And this is what the Ramchal is now going to talk about in terms of the Hashkafa, the Derech Hashem. So until now, basically what he's been talking about, what is the plan? And now he's going to talk about, okay, who are the players, so to speak, in this plan? And how do they contribute to each part? So he divides the entire creation into two major sectors. One area, or one type of being, or rather, he divides it into two different major dimensions. One is called the physical reality, right? And the other is the spiritual reality. Remember, I told you, there are three realities. One is physical, second one is spiritual, and the third reality is God. The Ribono Shel Olam, God is not physical, obviously. He's not even spiritual, you see. The nature of God is unknown, because it's neither. Because you have to remember what that means. The reason why it's neither ultimately is because both the physical and spiritual realities are created, right? So he precedes creation. So if the physical and spiritual are created, then what is he? What's his nature? And the answer to that is, it's unknown. Because in the end, if I asked you, does anything coexist with God? Which means he didn't have to create it. And the answer is nothing. Nothing coexists with him, you see. Everything had to be created. Whether it be objects, things, whether it be ideas, concepts, you see. And I mentioned even the concept of existence is a created concept. So the Ribono Shel Olam is not spiritual, as I said, because nothing coexists with him. Therefore, he had to bring everything into creation, including, except what he obviously did is he created two types of universes or dimensions. And you should know that each one is very different from each other. Very different, so Obviously, so one of them is the physical, which obviously we are very familiar with, and the other one is spiritual. But as I said, he is neither, which is a very important concept. And many people confuse that. They think that God is part of the spiritual universe, which he's not. Anyway, and the Ramchal defines the concept of physicality. Anything that can be appreciated or picked up by the senses is physical. That's the definition. And I once mentioned quite a while ago that the concept of physicality is not just objects or bodies or whatever, but it's even the dimension called the, for instance, electromagnetic radiation, radio waves. It's also physical, and so on, because obviously it can be picked up by receivers, transmitters, and so on. So anything which can be seen, heard, felt, touched, smelled, whatever, is physical. The Ruchniim, spiritual beings, obviously cannot be in any way detected. It is impossible to detect. The only way to detect them is if they assume a physical garb, which it never becomes part of them. It's like somebody puts on a costume, it's not the person. Same idea. If a malach decides, which is really what happens many times, he decides that he wants to appear to a person, so then he will appear having assumed some type of a physical garb. But they are obviously clearly not physical. In any case, so that's the two basic divisions of the entire reality, Now the Ramchal says that the physical reality is divided into two things. One is obviously the physical world, and the second thing he talks about is the celestial physical world, which are the stars, and so on, the planetary bodies, the stars. These are also part of the physical world. Now later on, you should know the Ramchal, there's a whole concept called astrology. And astrology clearly imputes to these stars and planets specific forces that they govern the world. This is the whole concept of astrology. Now astrology, according to the Torah, is a true science. It's not known today, but it was known, for instance, to the Egyptians. There is a true chokhmah to astrology. And the Ramchal talks about that later on, and so on, you know. But the basic understanding of astrology, remember, astrology is not astronomy. Astronomy is the study of the heavenly bodies, right? But in terms of who they are and what they are and so on. But astrology is a study of the influence that heavenly bodies have on the world. And the truth is that they don't have any influence in that sense. But what is interesting is that they reflect decrees in heaven by the emotions, when they appear and how and so on. It's almost like they're the indicators of what is happening in the spiritual domain. So even though they are physical, obviously star is physical and so on, but what the Baruch Hashem did is that he allowed people to read, so to speak, what are the gzeros, the decrees that are happening in heaven.
So they influence, or they're just indicators?
They're indicators, which is really fascinating. You know, so the basis of astrology is a real chokhmah, but not that the stars will influence you. Of course not, right? But their patterns, their emotions, in other words, when you're born, on the which star and so on, means that at that point in time, there are always decrees in heaven, gezeros, going on. You see? And therefore what the Baruch Hashem did is he allowed us to be able to read that. You see? That's why when all of a sudden when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, they said there's somebody that's born that's going to destroy Egypt. Obviously the decree happened at that moment, and it was revealed in some type of a pattern in the stars. You see? It's not, of course, astrology is not recognized by science. Why? Because most of the time they're either wrong or whatever. But you know, if you read the papers and take a look at these, you know, there's whole columns on astrology. You know, it's interesting. Sometimes they're pretty accurate.
Are you supposed to believe in that?
Which?
The paper astrology.
No, because they have an incredible amount of distortions. But the real astrology, and the reason why astronomy obviously doesn't recognize astrology, you know, very simply, is because besides the fact there's no proof in that way, you can't subject it to a real experiment, you see. But because according to the Torah, astrology is nothing more than an indicator of what the gzeros are in Shemayim, in the spiritual world, you see. Now, they don't recognize the spiritual world, so what, are they going to recognize the indicators? You see what I'm saying? So obviously they don't recognize anything. You know, you have to believe in the spiritual domain that it actually issues decrees against the world and so on. So you don't recognize that. You don't recognize the signs of those decrees and so on. You know, but so the Ramchal refers to that. He calls them heavenly causes. So it's not that they cause. That's the mistake. You know, if you're born when Mars is in ascension, and which house was it in, or whatever stuff goes on in astrology, you know, that simply means that there are standard decrees that happen, you see, and you were born in that type of decree, and therefore that can have an influence, not because of the pattern of the stars or the planets or whatever, but because of the decree in heaven at that point in time. Anyway, so he counts that as part of the physical universe. Yeah. Then of course you have the physical earth and so on, you know. Now, so besides that, you have the spiritual universe, and the definition of a spiritual universe is that it's impossible to detect in any which way that type of inhabitants of that universe and so on. And that's what makes it spiritual, you know. I mean, someday we'll all know what that is. We will all know. But there's something even more fascinating, because we are spiritual, which is, and he's going to bring down exactly and so on, Anyway, then he says, okay, so we have the physical universe. We understand that there are two fundamental components, right? The physical universe and the heavenly bodies, right? Then he says, now we're going to the spiritual universe. The spiritual universe, right, is composed of two fundamental entities. One is called the neshama, the soul, right? And the other is called, they call the nivdolim, or those that are transcendent of the physical. What's the difference? Okay, so a soul, although he's not defining what a neshama is, that's really unknown, okay? But a neshama is a being that ultimately will inhabit a physical body. That's what a neshama is. And there's only a certain amount of neshamas that were created. It's not like there's no infinite amount of neshamas. There's only a certain amount that were created, okay? And like it says, and the Gemara says that the Mashiach will only come after all the neshamas shebeguf. It's called the guf. It's like, right, are brought down, Who's guf? The guf of Adam Rishon. That's really who it means. Adam Rishon had a guf, and he had a neshama, and his neshama was really a composite of every neshama that was ever created. You see, and therefore, but after the sin of Adam Rishon, it split. Hundreds of thousands of different splits and so on. So when all the neshamas that were originally in this one man will have been born, that's the end of time.
Didn't they always say that there's no more neshamas, they're all being born at this point?
But I'm not referring to that. That's a different concept. What that concept is the reincarnation of neshamas. But the totality of all neshamas, whether they're reincarnated or first-time appearance, right? It was in the guf of Adam.
There's no neshamas being created still?
Today?
Yeah.
No. I mean,
So that's what I'm saying.
we're all called recycled.
Right, so there's no more new neshamas.
No, not really. You don't mean that. You mean there are no new neshamas, which means there are no first appearances. Yeah. Really not. It's, I mean, maybe there were tzaddikim probably who were maybe first neshamas, but that's probably ended a long time ago. Today everybody's recycled, basically trying to repair what they did wrong and all the other Gilgulim before that,
Is there a number known of how many elements form that composite?
If the what?
Is there a number known how many elements form that composite?
What am I?
How many neshamas make up his? You said his neshama was a composite.
Yeah.
Of all the ones to be. Is there a number of how many?
No.
That you compare to the world population?
No, there are no. There is no known number. What's important is that there was a finite number created, and that's it. Means if you're in there, you're in. If you were not created, you're out. It's not going to be like more stuff. More neshama is going to come back. Now we don't know why the Rosh did that. What determined the amount? It's unknown. Obviously, since we're all here, we're all in. Or else, who are you people anyway? What I'm saying? Where'd you guys come from? If you didn't come from that number, the original.
Come back at.
What? It's not when you come back. Who were you in the first place before you even came down here? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, So in that sense, but there's a finite number, and these people have the task. So, like today, most people are old neshamas, recycled, attempting to complete the job that they didn't complete, whatever. So but it's a lot of complexity. Some neshamas come back into they have to live again. Some neshamas come back and piggyback with you. There could be two neshamas in one body, and one neshama came to help the resident neshama, so to speak, do its job. It's all kinds of. It's really a complex operation, how everything works. So there could be talk about multiple personalities. Yeah. What?
Free will, Bechira.
Who?
How do we explain Bechira then?
No. The one who's the resident neshama, primary, he has the bechira. But what the other neshama can do is give him certain feelings. All of a sudden, he feels spiritual. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it gives him additional emotions, so to speak, or maybe insights. But the one who makes the decision is called the primary. Anyway.
What about nitzotzos?
Yes, well, because neshamas are really different. There's what's called neshamas. I wouldn't use the word size, but maybe that's the best way to describe it. They're different sort of like sizes. There's what's called Adam Rishon was a neshama, but he was humongous. I mean, he had everybody. And then from him there's splits. And then from that there's nitzotzos sparks.
Which the nitzotzos were already created from the beginning of time, or were they created afterwards?
No, same thing. Well, the Adam Rishon, when he sinned, that's when everything split. Before that, there was only one neshama.
No, but they say he's a nitzotz of Yosef Atzadik, or whatever.
That's later on.
But was that nitzotz, was that created afterwards, or was that created after Adam Rishon?
No, it's all part of Adam Rishon.
So my question is, that nitzotz of, let's say, I'm guessing Yosef Atzadik, just to throw something out of my head.
Well, Yosef Atzadik is somewhere in the neshama of Adam.
Okay, but that nitzotz that came from Yosef.
Yeah? No, that comes from Yosef.
Okay, so was that neshama in existence before, from Adam Rishon? That
well, it was, but it wasn't individuated. That's what you're probably looking for. It wasn't individual. It was part and parcel of another neshama. And then when it came out as a spark, it became individuated.
So for a certain sense, there are new neshamas created after.
Well, in that, yes, but it all has to come from that stock, Adam Rishon. In other words, it's not new coming outside, So theoretically, you can have consciousnesses, more consciousnesses, because in the beginning there was only Adam. He was the only consciousness on the world, right? After him, we're all conscious, I hope, right? Last time I checked, I think we're all conscious, So so every time an neshama splits, a spark comes off or whatever, so it has its own consciousness. You know what I'm saying? So that, but it's all ultimately was in a primary neshama, so to speak, But was that?
And it's a conscious.
Yeah, it's a neshama. It's a real person. Yeah, you could be a nitzitz of anybody actually. In fact, we're basically all nitzitzes. We're all sparks from somebody else. I mean, of higher and higher. Because in the end, all Klal Yisrael, everybody is connected. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's connected. Question is, what's the breakdown? Anyway, so that's the neshama, which is destined to inhabit a physical body. So that's one type of spiritual entity. Okay? And of course, then there are the spiritual entities that are not destined to inhabit anybody. So what are they for? They're for what's called administration. They are the interface between God, the Ribono Shel Olam, and the physical universe. So there's a lot of hosts, which there are a lot of them, which the Ramchal is going to talk about. I mean, if you want, you can basically, he's going to divide the spiritual universe into specific entities, which he's going to talk about, and which I'll explain. There's when you look at spiritual entities, if you want to go from the bottom up, there are shadim, demons. They're called demons and so on, So that's one type of a spiritual, but a demon, as I will talk about, is a quasi or semi-spiritual entity. He's part physical, he has physical attributes, and he has spiritual attributes. Okay. And even though many humans look like they're demons, right? I think a popular word is demonic. I'm sure they think Trump is a demon of some sort, or something like that, But anyway, the real demon, okay, is partly spiritual and partly physical, which we'll talk about. So demons are one being that you could look at as spiritual, right? What was that?
Can be detected?
No.
Even though
Well, because they're spiritual also. They can allow themselves to be detected. I mean, you see Chazal, you see many Gemaras. Shlomo Melech, the classic, he spoke to Ashmedai. He's the chief of the demons. So it had a whole, and then ultimately got thrown out. There's a whole Gadita about him and so on. The Gemara talks about. I think the emperor, I forgot who, but the emperor made a decree, and some Tanoim, I think, I'm not sure, I remember who, they went on and he made a deal with the demon, I forgot the name, and that he told her, you go and inhabit the mind of the daughter of the emperor, so you make her crazy, and I'll come and I'll cure her, I'll tell you get out. So he's making a deal with the demon shade, so obviously that's what goes on. So demons are sort of like the lowest, okay? Above that, it's called the malachim. They're next, okay? And each one obviously has their characteristics, their properties, how they function, what their restrictions are. In other words, they have their own nature, and they have the laws based on that nature, you see? So you have the demons, right? And then you have angels. A third type of spiritual entity is called a transcendental force, which is the roots of everything physical, which we'll talk about. No? And the next one above that are the spheres. So if you think about it, there's like 4, and each one is subdivided like malachim. There are 10 categories of malachim, and each category is subdivided and so on. It's almost like a whole world in itself. All the angels is like a world in itself, But basically, there are 4 classes of spiritual, right? There's the low class, which is the, like I said, the demons, demonic. Then you have the malachim, the angels. And then you have the koiches nivdolim, which are the source and a counterpart to everything physical, which we'll talk about. And then you have the spheres. That basically, what the Ramchal is saying, that comprises the entire ruchniistic world. Okay? Yeah. Now the Ramchal talks about demons. Okay. Now demons, Shadim, have 6 characteristics. 3 of them, it's Gemara, 3 of them resemble humans, and 3 of them is completely out, do not resemble humans. So they're really, in many sense, it's a cross. It's really it's a being that has certain spiritual properties, and it's a being that has specific physical properties in that sense, although we cannot detect it. Okay? They are like us, they eat and drink. I don't know what their diet is. I don't know if it's food, I don't know what it is they eat, but they have to eat and drink, which means, by the way, that they are nourished from something outside of them. Because that's what eat and drink is, That means that you are deficient in something, and you've got to fulfill that, you got to remove that deficiency, right, by eating and drinking. We call it nutrition, In any case, so that's one concept. Another idea is that they procreate. They actually make little demons, I'm sure, I hope you're not thinking of your kids when you talk about little demons, right? But anyway, so they procreate, they reproduce, which is interesting. And the third thing is that they die. They're not eternal. Malachim don't die, obviously. But obviously they're physical enough that, because what is death? Death is a separation between the essential nature, right, and an added on nature. People die. Why? Because we're neshama and guf. The guf dies, which means it gets separated, decomposes, and ultimately will come back. Whereas a demon dies, and as far as the death of a demon is permanent. With us, it's temporary, because as we will see, what the Hashem did is that a neshama must go into a guf, which I said, right? But it must go into a guf eternally. It can never, once it enters a body, it can never be removed. Death is because of the chet, the sin of Adam Rishon, so therefore that's a temporary situation where it can be removed for a certain amount of time, but by Tchias HaMesim it re-enters a body, right, and remains there eternally, which is interesting. That's really what it is.
After the whole world is destroyed in that, there's still a physical group?
Yes, but there's a big difference, you see, The physical body, what exactly is the gist of Judaism? Right? So what the Rabbi did is very interesting. He creates two different dimensions, physical, spiritual. And then he takes the neshama, which is purely spiritual, right? And he merges it together with a physical body. And he puts it in the body. Okay. Now the neshama is going crazy because a spiritual being really cannot inhabit a physical body. But the Rebbe Hashem has a gzera, by a decree of God. It cannot leave. It cannot leave. It's permanent. It's only because of the sin of Adam Rishon where it was temporarily taken out of its place, and it's restored by Tchias HaMesim. You see. Now what's the purpose of that? Fundamentally, the purpose is this. Why is there a physical universe altogether? Why doesn't the Rebbe Hashem take the neshama, if you recall, take the soul, right, and merge with it, dveikus? I mean, Olam Haba, what is Olam Haba? Olam Haba is nothing more than a place, I shouldn't say nothing more, but it's a place where you attach to God, without getting into the whole concept of what the experience is and so on, okay? But it's fundamentally a place where the Rebbe Hashem appears to you, reveals himself, that you are really an outgrowth or an emanation of him, and so on. Okay. Here's the problem.
Why do you need a physical group?
I'm going to explain that. Yeah. That's my next. Now, so the question is, well, why couldn't the Rebbe Hashem do that? He creates the neshama, fine, and okay, fine. And now the Rebbe Hashem, the neshama emerges from the Rebbe Hashem, from God, right? And therefore, fine, because the neshama is basically our essence, and everything would be great, and that would be eternal, right? Eternal bliss, and so on. But the problem is, as I once gave a shiur, it's called Namadik Sufa. The problem is that there is an experience which detracts the neshama from experiencing God completely, or in a perfect manner. The problem is that the neshama, if there was no such thing as a physical universe, the problem is that the neshama experiences God, right? But it has done nothing to receive that experience. In other words, it's a gift, right? It has never earned the right, or more importantly, it has never caused that situation where it can experience God. When somebody gets something which it hasn't caused, then there's a tremendous feeling, okay, of inferiority or shame. What is shame? I once gave a whole shiur on Namadik Sufa. I don't want to repeat it, but the problem is that there's a concept called shame. What is shame? Anybody know what the emotion of shame is? When do we feel ashamed?
Nakedness?
Well, nakedness is a time we do, but what exactly is shame?
Inadequacy.
Who?
Inadequacy.
Inadequacy. Okay, let me take what you said, which is true, but you have to add a couple of ideas. A person experiences shame, okay, when some aspect of deficiency or vulnerability is exposed and they can't see it. That's what shame is. It's a very devastating emotion. It's one of the most powerful emotions of all, shame, For instance, you have a kid and the parent starts screaming at the kid. And the parent says, you dope, whatever, you dope, you can't do anything right? That kid will experience shame. What is shame? Because all of a sudden, the fact that it is deficient, the child is, and it's exposed not only to the parent, but to the child, produces a tremendous amount of shame. That's what shame is. It's an experience where your vulnerability, your imperfections are revealed. and you feel ashamed or embarrassed. The problem is, therefore, that when the neshama is always given reward, or rather the experience of God, and it didn't cause it, so the neshama, which is godlike, without getting into that, experiences the deficiency that, hey, I didn't cause this, so therefore who am I? I'm an inferior being. You see, that destroys the experience. Not totally, but partially, that the neshama feels. Because it experiences its own inferiority by receiving something that it never caused. So therefore, the Baruch Hashem says, I once gave a whole shiur about that, but that's fundamentally, in a nutshell, what Namadik Sufa means, bread of shame. Therefore, what the Baruch Hashem has to do is say, okay, you and I will get together, which is the ultimate reward, but it's not going to be a gift, a matana. It's got to be a reward for something you did. And then you could say, well, the reason why I'm experiencing it is because I actually did something, right? But doing something and causing something is divine, because only God causes, you see? So that removes the inferiority that the neshama experiences, because the only reason or the only amount it receives is because it earned it, you see? So that removes namadik sufa. And therefore, when it experiences God's presence, it's without flaw. That's fundamentally what it is. Therefore, what the Baruch Hashem had to do, right, in some way, is to allow the neshama to cause the experience in Olam Haba, in the future world. How did it do that? So what the Baruch Hashem said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you, and I'm going to put in front of you a barrier, you see? And that barrier does not allow you to experience me. Your job is to remove the barrier. That's the whole concept of the physical universe. You want to experience me? You got to work. You got to remove the physical barrier that separates you from me. And therefore, an entire physical universe was created fundamentally to serve as a barrier, a wall, right? That separates you and I, and therefore you must remove the wall, and the result is that you will experience me, but the only reason why you experience me is because you remove the wall. You remove the barrier. You see? That's the whole concept, basically, of the physical universe. And therefore, the neshama is placed in a body, in a guf, and that is the barrier, you see. And it must remain there because the Baruch Hashem is geyser, decrees that it cannot leave, and so on. So therefore, what does the neshama do? It has to remove the barrier. But how? Because we know death is not the removal, because the neshama is going to be reinserted. So what you'd say? Remember, what? Zikuch, correct. So what the neshama does through the through whatever trigger, whatever device it uses, which of course is the mitzvahs and so on, what it does is it's mezakech. It purifies the body, it dematerializes the body, and the body becomes spiritual. You see, it doesn't become a spiritual being, but it becomes completely dematerialized, so the barrier is completely removed, and all of a sudden it's as if there's no barrier at all. And that's really what Judaism is.
Does that mean that's compatible now to, it's conducted to spirituality as opposed to a barrier?
I didn't get that. What?
Meaning it's still physical.
What is?
Olam Haba is the body physical.
It's not physical, not the physicality that we know.
So it's only physical in relation to the neshama?
Yes, yeah.
So really it's spiritual.
See, it's not as spiritual as the neshama, but it's right up there in lights. You see, or else it would be a barrier. As long as the body is physical, then the neshama, because remember, the neshama is reinserted after death. It still has to go back to the body. So as long as the body is physical, you have the barrier. So what will happen is that the neshama, because of all the mitzvahs, will mezakech, will purify the body, dematerialize the body. Where the Ramchal talks about in Das Tunis, where the body is like a very thin glass, over the neshama, with no impediment whatsoever, with the neshama experiencing the outside of it. Imagine you have a glass costume, and it's completely see-through, but it's not the neshama; it's glass, so to speak. So. What was that?
What's the purpose of the gift?
In Olam Haba? It's an interesting question. Apparently the idea of that is that the Baruch Hashem says, listen, in this world there are two things doing the Avera. You, the Neshama, and the Guf. And when a mitzvah is done, there are two things doing the mitzvah. The person and the Neshama and the Guf. So the Baruch Hashem says, listen, it's not right for me just to take the Neshama out of the Guf, right? Which he could have done. Not dematerialize the world. He could just take the whole everybody's neshama out of the body, to destroy the physical universe and reattach to God, right? Or re-experience God. But he didn't want to do that. In some sense, he wants to in some way reward the guf, because it was part of the whole task, you see. And that's why we still have a guf, although the main idea is that it's not a barrier in any sense whatsoever, but it does remain with the neshama for eternity. Means you will have that, but it's not a barrier. So therefore, the purpose of the physical universe, very important, is to serve as a barrier to experiencing God, spiritual universe, and therefore the person has to mezakech, he has to retransform, the body into a spiritual form, right? And then as a result of that, he now experiences the Rebbe Hashem. And it's not just the person's body, the entire physical universe is retransformed into a spiritual, you see. And that's really the essential idea of the physical universe, what's called a tikkun of Na'amdik Sufa, to rectify the feeling of shame that an neshama will experience because it has caused nothing. And that reveals to the neshama its complete inferiority, which is, it's like I say, that's what shame is. When you realize you're inferior, you've been exposed, so to speak,
So are you saying that when we enter Olam Haba, it's going to have 4 layers?
What are the 4 layers?
Layers that have been transformed? Atzilus, Bria. It's going to have 4 layers of guf, so to speak.
No. What will happen is, it won't have 4 layers, it'll go through 4 layers.
You said that in terms of the guf of the neshama, in terms of a person, there's like a layer of a body that does not impede the vekas.
Correct.
So, and you said that the same thing with the universe itself. So will there be sort of like 4 layers to the universe as well?
No. Olam Haba begins in the year 9000.
Right.
This world is destroyed in the year 6000. So you got 3,000 years.
Destroyed.
What?
So you're saying the guf of the universe is destroyed?
Yes. So therefore,
what's the guf of the person?
Wait. The Mashiach's time period ends by the year 6000,
Right.
which is
before that.
Yes, he has to come before, rule, reign, whatever, and then his period ends by the year 6000, which is the English year 2240,
Right.
which is not very far away. If you really think about 222 years, I think. That means in 222 years, this world must end. That's why what's happening in politics is incredible, because we're right up against, as they say in English, we're pushing the envelope. We're right up against the whole messianic era, because we're very close to the whole destruction of the universe and so on. So therefore, from 6 to 7, right, then the universe is transformed, right, into what's called Yetzirah, which is Yetzirah. Yetzirah is a spiritual dimension, which we'll talk about, right? So the whole world moves up to the status of being in a spiritual dimension called Olam Yetzirah, right? Then from 7 to 8, it moves from Yetzirah, the world changes, retransforms into a higher spiritual dimension, and that is Bria.
There's no more physical world.
No, that's gone. But the whole universe, so to speak, and all of it, and plus the guf, the neshama is the neshama, moves into, like I say, first 1,000 years, it goes into Yetzirah, which is the world of angels, and then it goes into the world, and then from 7 to 8 goes into Bria, and then from 8 to 9, the whole creation, so to speak, it dematerializes further, whatever that means, into Atzilus. And then 9,000, the whole universe becomes what's called Olam Haba, which is Adam Kadmon. That's the highest of all the spiritual worlds. And that's
does not have a goof associated with it.
Well, the universe is physical, and all that physicality is refined, is purified. But it's no, the neshama is not refined. It is from the highest. It's the barriers are refined again and again and again. You see?
Which time period is the Yom Adin Hagadol?
Before we start, 6,000. It means Yom Adin, the great judgment day, as you right, happens after when the world is destroyed, and now everybody's situation has to now be determined for eternity. That's really what it is, you know.
And year 6,000 is before Mashiach?
Who?
No,
after. No, after.
1,000 years? After.
No. In the year 2240, right? That's when the world ends, and that's when the great judgment day is, and that determines where you're going to be for eternity. You see, and the reason why it has to do that is, there are 3 judgment times. One is when you die, one is Rosh Hashanah, the other is when you die, and the other is the last great day. Because, like I said, many people have done many good things, which will influence many people. So all that has to be taken into consideration. You see. So obviously you can't judge a guy now, because what happens if the guy did mitzvahs and he influenced other people to do good? So you got to wait until the end of all generations and then add up all the good stuff he did. You see, that's why I always maintain, if you want to be oisik in a mitzvah, which mitzvah? Do a mitzvah that's connected with Zikuy Rabin, to that the multitude should do mitzvahs. Because then you cash in on everybody's mitzvah from them and their children and their children's children until the end of time. That's always the greatest thing to do. You see? So therefore, we now understand that what the whole concept of the physical universe really is. It's just there is a barrier, and you need to undo the barrier. And then you've caused it, and as a result, Namlik Sufa is removed, and you are now in that situation. And obviously it depends how much of the barrier you remove. I mean, it depends on your mitzvahs and so on, That's all judged and so on. But that's the basic game plan of the whole Bria. And the Ramchal is talking about, what's the situation, So we talked about Shadim, right? And the next series of spiritual entities is angels, Malachim. Then the next one is called transcendental forces, which then after that is called the spheres. So that seems to be the totality of the spiritual universe.
What is the purpose of Shadim?
Well, that's the next thing. That's what I'm talking.
Is there a physical world after the 6,000 years?
No.
Physical universe? It's
not. It's all destroyed. Called Chat Chorv in the Gemara. Means the entire physical universe is destroyed. Doesn't mean that it's destroyed and there's nothing left. It means the whole thing changes. It transforms into a universe that is no barrier, basically. That's the 7,000th year. You see.
It's a relative destruction.
The outlook, the image of the lion will lay down with the lamb and the viper.
That's messianic. No, that's messianic. I just told you it's messianic.
Before 6,000.
Before 6, yeah. 6,000 is the end. But the Mashiach comes before, right? The last period of time before the end is called the Yemosam Mashiach, Messianic era. And that prophecy is at that point, because there's no Zoyama, because the Malach HaMovos has been destroyed or changed.
People won't die.
Small period of time then.
No. Not Mashiach ben David, ben Yosef, yes. Mashiach ben David, they won't die anymore. Because there's no death, because the Malach HaMovos is gone. Without him, it's not happening.
When you get into the 9,000th year and judgment, is there a sense of a klal community where we have, or is this an individual placement, a soul existential placement of judgment? You have a sense of a community in this?
Yeah, of course there'll be a community. Yeah. No, because it's in fact it's more of a community you can imagine, because really all the neshamas are tied to every other neshama. You just look like this. Goyim will be part of Jews. That's why the Navi says, and 10 Goyim will wear them to a cloak of a Jew and say, "We heard God is with you." What's this 10? Because they have a nefesh, and their nefesh, each Goy, which is interesting, is connected to a Jew. Because a Jew has 5 parts to the neshama. A Goy only has a nefesh, which is spiritual, right? But so therefore he's part of some nefesh of a Jew somewhere. So every Goy really, 10 Goyim will belong to one Jew, because their nefesh is connected to that Jew. You see, but the only way they can receive the reward is through the Jew, because he's the only one that has the full complement of neshamas that go straight up. So they all have to reconnect. You see. To get the fix, as they say, and they'll realize that. I mean, every Jew will be a rock star. I hate to put it that way, right? But every Jew is going to be a rock star. Where you ever had what do you call those? What do you call the people who hang on to rock stars?
Groupies.
Groupies. Yeah. This world is going to be filled with groupies. And the rock stars are going to be the Jews. Yeah, that's what the Navi says. I think it's Zechariah. We have heard that God is with you. You see, so therefore the desire is no longer for pot, it's for God, because that.
Old.
Yeah.
Other things now.
Yeah, exactly. That's all of a sudden. Dvekus, God, the Shechina is the high. You see, and everybody wants to get high, right? After all. So this is it, and what the covered, the honor that the Jews will receive in the messianic era is we cannot even comprehend. The honor.
Well, I thought, that the cycle, 7,000-year cycle will repeat again.
What was that?
Rabbi Bakya says that there's 7,000 cycle will repeat again.
Yeah, Reed disagrees. I know. According to him, we're in the third. I think we're into the third cycle of 67,000 years. He's got 40,000 years to go. No. The Ari says there's only one cycle, which is 6,000 years, and that's it. That's the Ari, and we go after the Ari. Although the Rabbeinu B'chai does say, I think according to him, we're in the third cycle. Well, what he's saying is that because it says that God creates 7 worlds and He destroyed them. And so on, so he says therefore that there are 7 6,000-year cycles.
Same people are the same players in every single one?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. No.
So
It's another.
What happens to all those people?
Well, they'll probably. It'll be a reunion. Whatever happens.
My question is, they get put away and then there's one big olam haba, or they have their own haba?
I don't know. It's not clear.
It's 972 generations before the creation of the world.
But the Ari says no. It's only one cycle, and that's it. And we are now 5,778, and we are only 222 years to the end, and so on.
But the Mashiach comes before.
Mashiach
can be way before. So we may be 10, 15 years away from Mashiach.
Correct. We are 10, 15 years away.
Because most of Mashiach depends on what Shita. It could be 40, 70, it could be 120 years.
Well, I bring down a Zoya, which says that Tchias HaMesim will begin in 210 years before the end, which means 2030. According to that Zoya,
12 years away.
Correct. Well, that's why you take a look at what's happening in the world.
Yeah, you see, it's
Have you listened to the 21st century stuff? It's all about what's happening, Trump, everybody. That's why it's just.
I came to hear about Trump.
Well,
all the way from 5,000.
Wow, I'm sorry to disappoint you.
So where do I listen to all these?
On the internet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm on YouTube. YouTube, Torah Thinking, and Torah Anytime.
Torah Thinking.
Thinking.com, YouTube, and TorahAnytime.org.
And you could sign up.
Was that .org?
Emails and
Oh.
everything.
Oh yeah.
Torah Anytime also?
Yeah, I'm on Torah Anytime. Yeah, listen to the whole 21st century. It's about 30 of them, 37.
So what shita is the most popular about how many years the Yosef Mashiach will be?
Well, the Zohar says 210, which means what is it, 13 years.
Yeah.
That's why we are experiencing such incredible rapidity of events.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And the whole status of Israel is changing. So is America, Israel, Yishmael. Remember I told you? Edom is doing tshuva, the Tov Shebe'esav. That's America. And Trump, I told you, is...
Evangelicals? Is that it?
No. And then you have Yishmael doing tshuva.
Christianity is dying.
Yes, yeah, that's part of it. The evil of Edom is dying, and it's all on the Shurim song, you know. But in any case, so this is basically what has to happen, you know, and yeah. So that's the whole concept of a physical universe. It's really what it's about. So the purpose of a Jew really is to dematerialize or purify the physical universe, so he can remove the barrier and experience the Rebbe Shalom. That's really the gist of the whole Judaism and so on. And therefore that explains why mitzvahs are physical. You know, Goyim, for instance, Christians, they believe what they have to do is get away from the world. That's why they build monasteries. You know what I'm saying? They get away so they can...
All they have to say is that they believe, and that's it.
Well, yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that their concept is to remove yourself from the physical world.
The world is an evil world.
Yeah, but the Jewish concept is you need to interact with the world. That's why all the 613 mitzvahs ultimately force you to interact. Why? Because you need to change the physical world. The way to do that is to do the mitzvah with the physical world, and therefore, you rechannel the physical world into a spiritual. That's why all the mitzvahs are distinctly physical. Not at all, you know, because you need to deal with the material, you know, which is the physical stuff, and you need to do a mitzvah with that material, and therefore that material now becomes purified. That's why mitzvahs are distinctly, as I said, physical, because the job is to remove the physicality, which is the barrier. So therefore, when you do a mitzvah, you are dedicating that physical substance, right? You are investing in it some spirituality by doing it as a commandment of God, and therefore later on it will become refined, and you'll have it will be purified. That's why Judaism is a very physical religion, you know, even though it's very spiritual, because the job is to, like I say, we need to change the physical world. And therefore, ultimately, what happens? Where is the Olam Haba? Here. This is Olam Haba. You know? Olam Haba is really here, but it's a different dimension. And that's what it is. You have to retransform this world again and again and again, and this place becomes Olam Haba. You see, which people don't realize. Olam Haba is not out there, it's here, but it has to be retransformed, the physical universe. You see? So this ties up all the necessities, you know, why they're this. I mean, and speak about, you know, Malachim yet, but I'll do that in the next year. But, you know, what are all these spiritual things are all functionaries. They're the ones that enable this to happen. But the game plan is the physical universe. These are Ramchal is talking about what are the components of the physical universe that are necessary for this game plan to happen. That's really what it's about so far. So we're at the point where we understand their components, okay, and what the plan is and so on. And like I said, each one serves a specific purpose. And I'll do is talk next time certainly about the Shadim, you know, what their purpose is and why they even exist, you know. And we're just going to go through it because it's fascinating to really understand what Judaism is about, you know, and so on. I mean, think about it, which I said last week. The acceleration of what's happening today is beyond belief. There are things happening constantly today which never happened before. Like I told you, you know, Saudi Arabia doing tshuva, it's happening. You know, America, in many ways, are being converted into a place that loves Israel. The capital next month, Jerusalem becomes the capital, right? And the embassy is moved. These things are incredible,
So
you know.
Are you pro-Israel then?
Pro-Israel?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. We all pro-Israel. We all love Eretz
Not
Israel.
where I work.
And therefore the speed of which things are happening is really tremendous, you know. And that's what it is. Very short amount of time. I think I told you the Gematria, Pokoid Pokadati. Remember that? When the Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Pokoid Pokadati, I have surely remembered, right? That's what God said to Moshe Rabbeinu by the burning bush to take out the Jews, correct? Right? Now, Pokoid Pokadati, right, means I have surely remembered, right, is a statement that refers to the Mashiach ben Yosef. The Pekid, in Yalav Yovo you say, V'yipoked v'yizocher, and which is two expressions of remembrance, okay? The first one, v'yipoked, means the release of the Mashiach ben Yosef from prison, from the Klippa. That's what it is. And that's why Yosef said, Pokod Yifkod, remember me? He said that, you know. And when Moshe Rabbeinu came to Israel, he said, Pokod Yifkod. And Serach Basosha said, they asked her, how do we know he's a real guy? So he said, because he will use the expression called Pekida, Pokod Yifkod. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu used. But the original of the Boshim said to him, Pokod Pokadati, I have surely remembered. And that means you, Moshe Rabbeinu, who are the Mashiach ben Yosef. That's really who he was. You need to now be free, right, from the desert 80 years. In the Midbar, you go and take the Jews out, correct? The Gematria of Pokoid Pokadati, right, is 778. Yes? What does that remind you of? 5,778, right? It's this year. But the question is, well, which thousand is it? Because every thousand, what do you call it, 1,000 years has a 778, correct? Oh, so the word Pokoid Pokadati, the word Pokoid is missing a Vav. It's spelled without a Vav, okay? So if it had a Vav, it would be part of the Gematria. But since it doesn't have a Vav, it's not written, it's pronounced, it's not part of the Gematria. But since it is pronounced, it's got to be part of the word. So what does 6 mean? We're missing the Vav. The 6th millennium. So in the 6th millennium of 778, bingo. Interesting, isn't it? Wouldn't it be interesting if this year really began the whole thing, and all the time it was in the word itself, which is the Gula, Pokadati. That refers to the redemption, isn't it? It's exactly what God is saying. I have remembered, right? And redemption is, I'm sure you will, you know. But so that would be interesting, you know. It's a beautiful Gematria.
But that's talking Mashiach ben Yosef?
Yeah. Well, that's Moshe Rabbeinu, Mashiach ben Yosef, you know.
Who would have been Mashiach ben David in Moshe Rabbeinu?
That's conjecture, you know.
Has to be from Yehuda, no?
Yes, he would be. Ben Yosef can be from Levi, but the other one can be from Yehuda. There's a theory that it could have been Chor. He's the only one killed. The only one killed in by the Chet HaEgel was Chor, and he was taken from the son of yeah, maybe he would have been. But since it was Chet HaEgel, there was no need for Ben David, because even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't be Mashiach ben Yosef. That's why the Baruch Hashem said to him, Lech Reid, go down. Not only go, but go down from your Mashiachos. You cannot be the Mashiach. Because Klal Yisrael just sinned and they can't deserve it. Who?
Moshe Rabbeinu would have died.
No. He just can't be the Mashiach.
If he was Mashiach ben Yosef, doesn't the Mashiach ben Yosef have to die?
Well, that's an argument. That's a big machloikus. But the Goyin, many people say he won't die. What the Baruch Hashem did is he brought him back in many Gilgulim, and in each one he suffers, so if he added them all up, he would kill a person, but he will survive. And the Vilna Goyin gives a remez when Yaakov comes to Egypt, when they told him that Yosef was alive, so he said, Oid Yosef ben Yichai. He's still alive. So that's the remez that Mashiach ben Yosef will not die. In fact, the Ari says that when we say in the Shemon Esrei, you know, Matzmiya Ken Yeshua, you know, Es Semach David, who's Semach David? Mashiach ben Yosef. That we pray that the Mashiach ben Yosef should not die. It's the Ari says. We actually mispal, even though we don't know. But it refers to Mashiach ben Yosef, that he should not die. Because if he dies, you don't want to even think what that means. It's not just the death of a Mashiach. It's much worse. because then you have where Klal will itself will come to near destruction, because it's a whole.
Fights for us.
Yeah. But in any case, so we're I say we're right up against that, of this happening. Just look at all the events, and so on, of course, which is what I've been talking about, and so on. So we're right up against that. You selling your real estate?
Moving this year now.
Because
I always ask, we have these beautiful homes here.
because of this year,
No.
so then I got to get a commission.
Right. We have all these beautiful
Right.
homes, right?
Yeah.
We come to Mashiach, when Mashiach comes, you have to go there and say, who's going to buy our homes? Those homes that had minyanim in their basement will go with us.
Yeah. Who's going to buy a
You
home?
should start a minyan in your house.
Yeah, because all the Bati Midrashas, Bati Knesset, yeah. It's an idea, Any questions?
Olam is forever?
Is eternal, yeah. The definite, or the experience of Olam Haba, this, I sum it up. Infinite bliss eternally. That's my sum up of Olam Haba.
If you could sell that.
Yeah.
The Techias HaMesim has to be in 12 years.
There's a Zoya that says, it's a Rai Mehemna, but it's part of Zoya that says that Techias HaMesim will start 210 years before the end, which is 13 years from now. And then there's another one who says that no, it's going to start 214 years before the end. So that's even closer.
So are there any thoughts on how people are going to handle that people returning? How do you incorporate them into
I once explained to you what I feel must happen.
It's a shocking thing.
Shocking?
What is it?
And Hashem doesn't work that way usually.
Yes, he doesn't, yeah. I once told you that people have no concept. I want to tell you something. The difference between before Mashiach and after Mashiach is the difference between a child before it's born and after it's born. Shock. I mean, it's like, before it's born, it's got a great hotel, it gets all the food it wants. It's incredible, right? It's like the Hilton, right? And all of a sudden it's thrust into a world. What is this? Before Mashiach ben Yosef comes, we have what we're having now. And that's, we are now, I feel, right before the Aschalta de Geula, which is Mashiach ben Yosef. We are at the end of Ikvas de Mashiach, which is the footsteps of the Messiah, okay? And that's the first phase, termination phase. We are entering now the Aschalta de Geula, the beginning of redemption, And the problem is, which I had spoken about in one of the Shiurim, is that people do not understand who or what the Mashiach ben Yosef is. But he's a person that if you see him, he will kill you because of his Kedusha. You see, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he came down, he had to wear a mask. You couldn't look at him. Why? What did he have? The Kedusha of Moshe was so great, it would kill you. You see, the Mashiach ben Yosef is greater than Moshe Rabbeinu, which people do not understand. It's like I told you once, there's a medrash, where the medrash says there are three expressions of growth. It's in Yeshayahu. Behold, my servant will grow wise, he will grow, exceed, and so on. Three expressions of growth. So the medrash says, why is there three expressions? And Yaska Avdi, my servant, is Mashiach ben Yosef. Because Malcolm Mashiach, that's what the Targum says. Some people say it means Israel, Klal Israel. So the first expression of growth, which is Yoram, that he will be greater than Avram Avinu. You have any idea what that means? Be greater than Avram Avinu. Then the second expression, Venisa, and he will become, exceedingly great. So the Mendel says that means he will be greater than Moshe Rabbeinu. Can you imagine a man walking around, and this is a regular guy, and he comes in, right? He's going to be amongst, right? He's greater than Moshe Rabbeinu. So then the Mendel says, what about the last expression? I mean, you already beat out Moshe. What's left, right? So the Mendel says that he will be greater than the Malachim. You have any idea what that is? Imagine an angel comes down and there's a guy walking around that's greater than the Malachim. A guy like that, once he comes, he's going to kill the whole human race. You see. So then what saves us? That's the question. if the Rabbi Hashem brought the Mashiach, right, he would kill everybody. So what are we all begging him to come for?
That's Mashiach ben Yosef.
Correct.
So Mashiach ben David is even greater?
No, he's equal. Well, all you need is one guy to kill you. You don't need two, right? So the answer is, which is very interesting, because the Mashiach ben Yosef is trapped. It's part of what's called the suffering of the Messiah, Mashiach ben Yosef, you know. And Mashiach ben Yosef is in what's called the Klippa. For whatever reason, without getting into all that, which I once spoke about, and so on, you know. So what's going to happen is, Klal Yisrael must rise in their spirituality before he comes. You see? Because if they don't, when he comes, kill them all. So therefore what's going to happen is going to be a simultaneous growth. It's a growth of the Mashiach, which means he begins to leave what's called his figurative prison, right? So as he begins to grow, Klal Yisrael will grow with him at the same time. You see? And as a result of that, he and they will grow, so they will be able to tolerate him as he begins to grow. And that is the real messianic process. You know, what's happening now with Trump and all that, that's peanuts compared to what has to happen. The Rebbe Hashem says, listen what it says, and I will gather, it's in, was in, not Hazinu, Vayelech when it's and I will gather the Jews from all over the earth, and I will bring them to Eretz Yisrael. You see? What does that mean? That means that the Rebbe Hashem is going to bring everybody back, including all the 11 million Jews that are fry, that are gone, right? He's going to bring them all back, right? What do you mean bring them back? Wait, well, it is happening physically. But what it really is spiritually. He's not going to allow the Mashiach to come to the Jews that are in a terrible, degraded state. You don't realize the Jews are in a terribly degraded state in terms of their ruchnius.
So
it's incredible.
In 10 years, Klal Yisrael is supposed to grow to become greater than the Dardea?
Yes. How is that going to happen? Only God knows.
This generation.
Correct. But I want to tell you, but that's the Gula. Think about it. That's the redemption.
You can ask the same questions.
By the way,
Well,
I'm not getting into that, but it did happen once. It did happen once. You know when? Mitzrayim. 49 days. They went from being slaves in Egypt, which is they went from Memtesh Shari Tuma, yes, to almost to Nun Shari Bina, Kedusha, in 49 days. Can you tell me how that happened? But so it does have a precedent. You see, so if God can do it in 49 days, He can do it. It's not a problem, you know. The question is, how is it going to happen politically? And right now, the ones who are shoyleit are the Erev Rav and all that kind of stuff, you know. How is that going to happen? Unknown. But it's going to be the greatest miracle of all. In fact, the miracle of the Mashiach is much greater than Yetzias Mitzrayim. Much greater than the exodus of Egypt. You see, so therefore, God is just like He did then. He had to. Why? Because you cannot give them a Torah which was the messianic light. That's what it was on Shavuos. You can't give it to Jews that are coming out of the Memtesh Shar Tumah. It's a death sentence. It's obvious. In fact, they did die, right? When God appeared, gave them the first two mitzvahs, right? Anyway, they died. So it didn't even work for that. But at least, you know, but they had to. So what choice does God have? I mean, He has a choice, but you know what I'm saying? He has to replicate what happened in Egypt. People do not realize that. They think a guy's going to come riding on his donkey, whatever, right? And he's here, and now all of a sudden, business is going to be great. You know what I'm saying? And everything is going to be really dandy, as they say, right? Really is going to take off. The market's going to go crazy, right? And so, you know, and the Mashiach, you know, he'll hold himself up in somewhere, some yeshiva.
Trump Tower.
Yeah. That's not what's going to happen. That's not what a redemption is. A redemption of Mashiach is the universe changes. Well, all of a sudden, there's an unbelievable rise in consciousness of God. You see, and like I say, so that has to happen. It already happened in Mitzrayim. It has to happen again. Because we're talking about the Geula. We're not talking about a mild transition. We're talking about the end of time. You don't realize what that is. It's the end of the whole history of mankind. by this one person. So therefore, the Jews will be transformed. Remember, it says in Kedusha, Hine gu'alti eschem achris kareshes, doesn't it? Behold, I will redeem you, right? Achris, the last redemption will be like the first. You realize that's a tremendous secret. What God is saying, that the real redemption, the first one was Egypt. And exactly what happened in Egypt is going to be happening in the end. Well, if they went from Mem Teshar Tumah in Egypt, yes, we're basically the Jews today on the Mem Teshar Tumah, right? You know, and what the Moshe did, in 49 days, he lifted them, not just from Mem Teshar Tumah, he took them out of the Tumah into the Kedusha. Now, we don't even know how they did it. We have no idea how the Moshe did that. You know, we're counting the Sphira, you know, today was what? You know, whatever, right? You know, okay, we're counting the Sphira. They didn't just count Sphira. We don't even know what the Avodah was. We have no concept what the history of the Jews leaving Egypt. You don't realize that, you know? There was something going on that is beyond physical. Look, in the 7th day, forget about the 50th day of Shavuos, right? In the 7th day, which was Kriyas Yamsuf, right? That a maidservant saw more than Yecheskel. I mean, what is that about? You have any idea what that? I mean, Yecheskel was like, the Kabbalah was all based on the Merkava, right? She saw more. She could put him to shame. And this was a maidservant. Forget about all the Jews and so on. So we have no inkling of what transpired in those 49 days. But I'll tell you one thing, it must have been beyond belief to go from the 49th level of tumah, defilement, out of defilement, into Kedusha, right? And 49 days you're standing at Sinai where God is going to reveal the messianic light, because that was the first tablets, the first look is the old Mashiach, right? You can't do that. And so therefore, if it says that, behold, the second redemption is going to be just like the first redemption, that means that the Baruch Shem is going to repeat the performance. He's going to get the Jews to be able to makabel the Torah of the Mashiach, which is the Orishon. How it will happen is unknown, because it's obviously miraculous and so on. What you are looking now, and people do not realize that, because they think, like I said, Mashiach's going to come, hey, how you doing? You know, where you been all these days? You know what I'm saying? You know, and that's all. It's a regular guy. You know, he's going to get into a yeshiva and give a shiur on the Rambam. You know? Right? That's what they think. But this is so far from what really happened. Just look at Egypt. It was so far and so on. Therefore, the Moshe has to bring back the Jews. He has to raise their level in consciousness of Ruchnius. And when you look around now, you say, it's incredible. I mean, you take a look at what's going on out there. Smartphones, internet, 11 million Jews are gone. It's unknown. But it will happen.
Has more technology than when they put the person on the moon.
Yeah, okay.
Rabbi Kessin,
Yeah.
as a side note to that, I wanted to ask you about this a long time ago. There's a Haftorah that states, if I recall correctly, that even on the islands where they never heard of me, they'll know that I am Hashem, and I'll make Kahanim from among them.
Now you know why everything is...
Is that from non-Jews who'll make Kahanim?
Now you know why there's such a thing as wireless. Why? No, you don't realize that. Why is there an internet? Right? Why is there? No.
Amazon Prime.
No, you have to understand what the Baruch Shem is what he's doing is beyond the comprehension of people. The reason why there's an internet, one, is the concept called global connectivity. No. That's what that global connectivity will be used for that. But it's to connect the globe. That's number one. Number two, the concept of wireless is so a guy sitting in the middle of a desert, right? And he's not plugged in anywhere. He also will be able to use the internet. The Baruch Shem is making sure that wherever you are, whoever you are, you will have access, right, to the globe when the Mashiach comes. And that's why the guys in the islands, right, how are they going to know? Because everything is wireless. That's why you have wireless technology.
Like to make Kahanim, when you have Yisraelim and Leviim, all these generations, that these people will make Kahanim from London. Does he mean literally the status of a Kohen, or that he'll make them
Just know the Goyim on the islands become Kohanim.
And I'll make Kohanim from among them. Is it literally that
Maybe there
you
are
have
Jews
this-
there.
Well, I mean, it's referring to Jews or Goyim.
Right, I don't know exactly.
You know?
Even on the islands where they never heard of me,
Yeah.
they'll know I am the Lord, and I'll make Kohanim from among
Well,
them.
what is a Kohen?
No,
You know, I mean, not a Kohen today, but a Kohen in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, right? His whole day was dedicated to God, right? So therefore, when the consciousness of the Bereshit enters the Bria, everybody will, what are you going to do all day? You're not interested in money. Money is passe, right? Because everything will be free. You will therefore serve God all day.
they won't make Karbanos though, right?
There'll be a korban, there'll be a shlomim, but there's no chatos. There's no chatos, there's no oshim, probably no, I don't know, oil, I think oil either, because those three korbanos are brought because of chet, sin. But after Mashiach comes, there's no chet, right? And so on. So there's only a shlomim. You know what I'm saying? And so on, you know. But the thing is that we cannot fathom what's going to be after this man arrives. We don't know who he is, you know. One more chazal which I have quoted, you know. It says that the whole Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, right? What's the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu? You go into a farm store, 100,000 volumes there, right? You know, the Oitzah Chochmah was up to 78,000, something like that, right? That's Torah, right? So the Medrash says that the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu is Hevel. Oh, I should say the Torah of Mashiach, the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu is nothing compared to the Torah of the Mashiach. What does that mean? We can't comprehend the Torah of the Mashiach. You see what I'm saying? And then the Medrash says that the Torah of Mashiach is Hevel compared to the Torah of Olam Haba. We have no idea what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? We're not looking at here some new figure coming in and saying hi. You know, there is it's a what's called a paradigm shift. The existence of the world will be a paradigm shift. It's something completely different. The only thing maybe a good way of saying that, imagine if you took a guy in New Guinea in 1953, they never saw a white man, you know? I mean, these guys are walking around naked, I mean, whatever, you know, then you take him, put him into the future, right? And then put him on, let's say, Fifth Avenue. Let him walk down Fifth Avenue. He had a heart attack. Because he can't assimilate what he just saw. Cars, cell phones, I mean, it's beyond belief. Take a guy who lives in a hut, he's probably walking around half naked or whatever, right? And this guy can't count past 2. You know, I think some tribes only have a number up to 4, or something like that, right? And you put him, you know, he would have a heart attack. Same idea. That is the comparison of what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. We cannot believe. What? Is Mashiach born? I feel he is.
But so what does Mashiach ben David do if the Mashiach ben Yosef doesn't go?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Mashiach ben Yosef, when Mashiach Yosef's act is a hard act to follow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But but when Mashiach ben David is it's not, then everything becomes miraculous. See, in Mashiach ben Yosef, it's still Teva, but Mashiach ben Yosef, everything is miracles. Then the whole thing, the Teva changes, you know. So that's already a whole. There's no death. There's no doctors. You're out of business, right? You know, that's it. There's no decomposition. You know, there's no thing as want or deficiency. There's no hunger. There's nothing. All his life is incredible. And we, you know, it's just incredible. Everything you need. But the main thing is that all Jews will be prophets. And I don't mean prophet. I mean prophets. Yeah, we don't know what that is. We don't know what it is to prophecy.
And the Goyim will serve us.
Well, what's the
Well,
purpose?
10 goyim, you'll have 10 goyim running after you.
Everything's reached perfection. What do you do with this prophecy? New, so for eternity.
No, it's all about Kimola or it's there. It's just, you know, the world will be filled with the knowledge of God. You know, so we don't know what that. We don't. You understand? We don't know what that is. You know, what's going to be for eternity? What are you going to do for eternity, right? Think about that. Yeah, you know.
We get older.
You know, obviously there's got to be something to occupy your time for eternity. You know. I always get a kick out of there was once a statement I read. You know, millions of people dream, you know, of eternal life. You know, and they don't know what to do on a Sunday afternoon. Dreaming about eternal life, I went crazy. What do I do? So thank God, God gave them baseball and football and all that, you know. Or they really go with sugar, you know. And then everybody wants eternal life, you know. There's obviously something going on there, you know. You know, it's got to be unbelievable.
Rambam says that
anyway,
the world's not going to change physically.
The what?
Rambam says that the world is not going to change as the Mashiach comes.
No, that's Ben Yosef.
Yes.
But Ben David, the world changes. If there's no death, isn't that a change? Imagine all clinics, hospitals, doctors. There's no such thing as a refuah.
But lawyers, they'll still be.
Yeah, probably. You know, lawyers. Oh, what a species. You know. I mean, not all lawyers, but you know. But anyway, this is what's it's up ahead. So we're right at the what they say. We're right at the cusp of all this. You know, people have no concept of what's about to happen. It's already happening, except it's happening slowly. You know, but the things happening today that never happened before, never.
What's the transformation from Ikra de Mashiach to Aschalta de Gula?
Aschalta de Gula is like Moshe Rabbeinu by the sneh. That was the Aschalta de Gula. When the Mashiach ben Yosef knows who he is, and the only way he can know that is when if the Baruch Hashem gives him a nevuah, that's the beginning of redemption. Ikra for the Mashiach is all up to that, you know. And we are heavy into Ikra the Mashiach. We are probably at the end of it. I maintain that, and I say who Trump is, that he's really he's a Mashiach ben Edom. He's an Edomite Mashiach to change Esav, because Esav has to change before the redemption. The thing of Trump is to matar Edom, to purify Edom, because Esav has to do tshuva before the end, and he has to assist Yaakov. That's the nevuah.
That Ishmael and Edom come together, fight against Klal.
Yeah, but that refers to the evil of Edom, because Edom has two parts. They have the Tov Sheba Esav and the evil of Esav. The same thing with Yishmael. There's an evil part of Yishmael and a good part of Yishmael, and that's what's changing now, and so on, you know. But anyway, so all this happening, it's happening now.
Ishmael does tshuva too?
He is. That's why, what's his name, Mohammed bin Salman said, you know, they also deserve a land. Yeah. You believe this guy said something like that? It's unheard of. It's like, it's a miracle. They don't, that's a ness. That is a miracle that he said that. You know, okay, it's got conditions and, you know, but just to say that is unheard of. You know, every people deserve their own country. Wow. You know. Okay.